In this video, I'm going to run you through how to create the perfect gym plan for a busy guy who only wants to train 3 or 4 days per week, build muscle, drop body fat, and feel fitter. Previously, you've probably tried 3 sets of 10 on whatever machine is free. You might have tried 5x5. You might have tried listening to your mate who's in slightly better shape, but nothing seems to work. It is an extremely demoralising feeling going to the gym, putting in the effort to get there after work, getting there, doing the same things as other people, but the results just don't seem to show. And trust me, mate, that used to be me as well. And you may be wondering, well, who am I to be giving you gym advice on how to get into incredible shape? Well, I've been training for 8 years now inside of the gym, and I've created myself this level of transformation. I have coached over 3,000 hours on the gym floor. I've been in the coaching industry for going on 6 years, and I've been working completely online for over 2.5 years and getting guys incredible transformations just like these. Now, in this video, we're going to break down the 3 main pillars that you need to apply to build the perfect gym plan around a busy schedule, around a social life, and essentially how to get the maximum amount of results on the minimum amount of time. So the first pillar we're going to talk about is training intensity and progressive overload. Now, I have another video that you will see on my channel all around progressive overload. If you want to have a proper watch over that and really understand the system, please go and look at that video. However, we're going to be breaking down intensity and overload. So as a concept here, your muscles don't understand what sets and reps are. They don't understand if you've done 7 reps, 8 reps, 10 reps, or 12 reps. They understand intensity, and that is something I really want to make clear to you. Your muscles understand how hard they are being pushed, and if they are being pushed to a very high degree, they will have to grow and they will have to rebuild after you've just created damage and come back bigger and stronger to deal with the stress that you are giving them. And it's also important to know the difference between training intensity and training volume. Training intensity is how heavy you're training and how hard that you're training, your proximity towards muscular failure, and the volume is how much you are collectively doing. For example, you do 10 reps with 10 kilo, that is 100 kilo worth of volume. However, that might be very far away from muscular failure, so the proximity to failure in terms of the intensity of the set is miles away, but the volume is high. So the point being is you have to focus when you've got a limited amount of time on the maximum amount of intensity and pushing your muscles to the furthest point they can. Now, in my opinion, that is way easier to do when you focus on lifting heavy weights and you focus on intensity rather than volume. So the vast majority of this plan that we're going to create is going to be something along the lines of 6x8 and 8x10 for the vast majority of your work. And we're going to be focusing on moving heavy weights. And to be honest with you, even biasing a little bit more towards 6x8 to get the absolute most out of the available time that you have. You do not have the luxury of probably being there 5 or 6 days a week. And realistically, if you're there 5 or 6 days a week, the intensity is at a level where it's a little bit lower down and the volume's a bit higher, and maybe you're using volume as your vehicle to overload, and that is completely fine. But for someone on a short amount of time to get the maximum amount of results, you need to focus on the training intensity, how heavy you're lifting, and the proximity to muscular failure in which you're going. We then take that and we look at progressive overload. So using heavy weights, going very close to muscular failure, and using what we call a split rep range. As I say, it's in the other video, but essentially working with a split rep range and aiming to fill out and max out your rep ranges over time. You do not increase your load until you can fill out the rep range with a given weight. As soon as you can increase that weight, you then drop to the bottom of the rep range, you fill out that rep range again, we then increase load, we drop to the bottom of the rep range, we fill out that entire rep range again, and we increase load, and then we fill out that next rep range again. It's a very easy system to understand, but the first pillar of how to create the perfect gym program, before we look at the type of split and before we look at what movements we're going to be doing, you have to focus on the training intensity, the proximity to failure, and progressive overload. Now, of course, the next part we're going to look at is the structure of your training. So this is something of, let's just say 3 days a week. What we're going to be looking at is training frequency. So if you're only in the gym 3 days a week, I would highly recommend upper, lower, full body. And if you don't want to train legs twice a week, which obviously upper, lower, full body would be, you can then focus on upper, lower, upper. But I am going to use the split here of upper, lower, full body because we're getting to hit muscle groups essentially every third day, which is a really, really, really good training split because you have a very high amount of frequency through the week. You're consistently, going back to point one, training towards muscular failure with very high levels of intensity on a progressive overload basis and on a frequent basis. You're not waiting to hit those muscle groups every 7 days, because if you're doing that, it will still work, don't get me wrong, but the results are not going to be as fast as someone who is focusing on their training frequency and consistently hitting muscle groups. Now, that may be one of the reasons that you failed in the past, is you maybe only have 3 days a week and you focused on a chest day and a shoulder day and a back day, or you've maybe done push-pull legs once a week. And don't get me wrong, doing all of that is a hell of a lot better than not going to the gym. But when it comes to maximizing the results that you can get on a short amount of time, focusing on something like an upper lower full body, focusing on the maximum amount of intensity that you can apply in that given time with a very, very frequent training basis, you are going to get the maximum amount of results in the minimum amount of time. Whew. And now we're going to move on to point 3. So we've obviously covered, you've heard me say it a million times, intensity, overload, and then we've just looked at the type of split that you should run. What we're now going to look at is movement selection and intensifiers. So if we're going to use the split of upper lower full body, let's say, or if we were following a 4-day split, we could maybe follow upper lower, or maybe we would change it completely to a push pull legs upper. But let's just say the 3-day split just now, upper lower full body, since we've been working with it. So what we're going to focus on is our big compounds. Now, the way that I want you to think of this is there's not that many movements you can do in the gym. You can vertically push something above your head, whether that be a machine, whether it be a barbell, whether it be a dumbbell. You can horizontally push, you can vertically pull, you can horizontally pull, you can hinge, you can squat, you can lunge, you can carry, you can rotate, you can then obviously do smaller things such as adduction, elbow extension, elbow flexion, and so on and so forth. There's so many small things that come into it, but the main things are the ones that I just listed. So it's understanding how to blend all of that together inside of your session. So if we were creating this session, I'm going to put a focus here on the first main movements inside of the session. So inside of the upper session for the week, we're going to focus on a horizontal push. And inside of here, I'm going to put an incline barbell press, which is also a bilateral movement. So we're going to focus on horizontal push, and then we're going to focus on a horizontal pull, which is also going to be bilateral. So let's just say a barbell row. Fantastic. We're then going to focus on going underneath there. We're going to focus on a horizontal push, which we're going to make unilateral, and then we're going to focus on a vertical pull, which is also going to be unilateral. Let's just say a seated dumbbell shoulder press and a single arm lat pull down. We've just covered the main bases that we need to touch. So let's go into the leg day. We're then going to make the first part of the leg session, we're going to make it squat dominant. So let's just say we do high bar squats, and then underneath that, we maybe do pause squats. Then we maybe do a hinge exercise, but it's not going to be the primary mover for the session. It's going to be the squat. So let's just say we then focus on a dumbbell RDL or a glute ham raise, and then we do a lunge pattern after that. The rest of the session will take care of itself, whatever we decide to put in there, but then we're going to go into the full body session. So let's just say, and just building on what we've done previously, at the start of the upper session, we've done horizontal pushing and horizontal pulling. So what we're now going to focus on in the full body session is more of a focus on your vertical push and your vertical pull. So let's just say we go for a strict barbell overhead press, and then we're going to go for a weighted pull-up. So we've got that contrasting nature of what we've done. Then we're going to go for unilateral movements, focusing on your horizontal push and your horizontal pull. So let's just say a flat dumbbell press, and we go for a single arm dumbbell row. So we've got that nice contrasting nature through the program, And then let's say we're going to focus on a hinge for the rest of this program. So let's just say we decide to put deadlifts in there, and maybe we put a front squat in there, or we put another leg movement in there as well. But as I say, it's not going to be the primary mover because we've hit the squat pattern the other day. Now we focus on the hinge. So it's understanding how to get the maximum amount out of the time that you do have. As you'll see, I have only spoken about big, heavy, fundamental compound movement patterns and how we can blend them together through the week, focusing on unilateral exercises, bilateral exercises, and focusing on how we can blend that together over the upper session, the lower session, the full body, and get the most out of your time. We can then look at things like intensifiers. Of course, when you've only got a short amount of time, focusing massively on your training intensity is going to be very, very beneficial. So maybe sprinkling in something like drop sets, supersets, giant sets, trisets. There's so many different ways to do it. I would recommend you focus more on drop sets and supersets, as these are quite easy to consistently do, and you do get a lot of bang for your buck when you do these. However, don't make your entire personality in the gym about intensifiers. Focus on progressive overload with load and reps before you look at these things. Once you've covered those bases, and maybe you're doing some arms or some chest or some delts at the end, cool, feel free to add intensifiers in to get the most out of the session, again, on a short space of time. I know I've just spoke about an incredible amount throughout this. We've spoke about training intensity, we've spoke about progressive overload, we've spoke about what split you should be using, and then we spoke about how to structure the movement through that split. There is a lot inside of here. However, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and as I mentioned earlier, if you want a completely free 4-day intensive gym program that takes every single thing I've just spoken about into one beautifully created program, all you need to do is head to the description down below and you will be able to download my completely free 4-day intensive gym program where you will get an incredible amount of value from. Download it, I'll see you on the inside, and I'll catch you in the next video.